The merch.
We
The
see
merch.
The merch buff.
the merch buff, as per usual, coming in hot. But it looks like Nick. Okay.
Let's go!
First off,
I'm here for the London Spitfire. I don't know if it's recency bias or if I'm Reinhardt pilled or something, but it's London Spitfire all the way. They've got the momentum. They can do it.
listen,
I like that,
I'm
the
all
momentum.
aboard the Jake train on like the whole mentality thing. I can only understand like how these players are feeling after an insane 5-game series. Like that goes the distance, and you have to think about what that does in the difference between Toronto Defiant, who have been able to watch the games, and London Spitfire, with their literal tournament lives on the line, playing their heart outs to finally make their way through. But also, Necra, I tweeted about this. I made a comment to you actually in our chat. It is so bittersweet to see our two scrim buddies between the Toronto Defiant and the London Spitfire, the remnants of American Tornado and British Hurricane, potentially playing their last match of this entire Overwatch League season.
I mean, that really has been the storyline of this entire season for both of these teams. The power of friendship. How far can that take you? London Spitfire have been working together for 2 full seasons now, and Toronto Defiant have a ton of history within their roster as well. And is that going to be enough to carry either of these teams to victory today? And how much has actually been seen within these scrims? Have they actually showed both of their hands? So he made such a great point of, can you even play all out when you know that that just might be your potential opponent that stands in your way to get to the finals?
It's interesting to see how Hadi, being the warrior on the London Spitfire, being the chatty that he is, leading this team to victory, being on the Ryan and sticking to their guns with this comp, and still finding interesting and unique ways to utilize the Sim TP to get into position to help Backbone win an amazing series in the last game. We highlighted Sparker, but both this DPS duo from the London Spitfire have so much to show with the cohesion that this entire team has and the history that you mentioned, Necra, versus the Toronto Defiant that, if we have been able to see them get used to what they're expecting already from the London Spitfire, and they got practice involved in scrims, you could already expect that Toronto Defiant know what to expect, know what they're probably going to use for their rotations with this TP strats that they have been using. But how far does that go when Defiant aren't as burnt out, more than probably, versus the Spitfire, who maybe either they're relying on the amount of time that they just played as a way to elevate themselves and be already warmed up, or is the Defiant going to be able to get the better ahead of them?
Well, you know what I wonder, Vicky, is you talk about contenders' prowess. You talk about the history that all of these players have had playing Overwatch. Well, what about Toronto's coach, Gator? Literally one of the linchpins and the creators of the GOATS composition. Let's not forget that Gator is one of the best Reinhardts that has ever touched the game. And I wonder if there is anything, like any sort of information that he can give over to like help keep the Toronto Defiant have cool heads heading into this London Spitfire Reinhardt comp.
I just think about Toronto having plot armor. Toronto wants to be in Toronto to perform for the playoffs. It is going to have so much on the line between these two teams. Our very first map, we're moving on to Busan. So we're gonna have to see how this plays out in favor for the Toronto Defiant, taking us here first. You can see it on your screens. It is the Defiant pick once again. Higher Seed obviously being the one to take us to our very first map, playing into their strengths and what to expect already from the London Spitfire, considering the fact that this is a composition that we already know is not gonna change up.
It's not going to change. No, you know what? I don't know how much Toronto Defiant are going to change their composition either. But I think something that they do bring to the table, yeah, okay, we can expect what we expect from the London Spitfire. To Metro Teleporter usage can still be really tricky to play around, but what about the X factor that Toronto Defiant bring with how much they can frag? This is a team that has had very high highs when it comes down to the mechanical skill that they bring to the table, especially with how Kaluj has been playing this Orisa, Sir Majed, the Alari. There is so much explosive damage available on this team, and you have to be worried if you're the London Spitfire about getting caught out by a Stray.
It's something else that I get to finally enjoy too, joining everybody back on the NA broadcast is seeing the Alari potentially. And as I said that, you know, I gotta change things up immediately. All right, he just have to play a got you moment. We're already rolling out. Toronto Defiant here are gonna be able to utilize these Mei walls to help contest around these tight corners, but with Backbone being on the sim, they've already TP'd forward, Necro.
Yeah, you use the Lucio to just get a little bit of a speed boost. You switch back immediately to the Alari. Sir Majed is the best Alari in the league right now. And the way that he's been able to maneuver with this hero has allowed him to get so many first picks time and time again. And that's something else that the desk said to watch out for, is how strong can this Captive Sun ultimate be into a team like London Spitfire that like to play super balled up. Nobody has been able to make any progress yet. You can see Toronto Defiant moving to the point first, but it's only a matter of time before these Baptistes get their amplification matrices online. And Sir Majed is down.
Talk about a huge first pick here in favor for the London Spitfire as they fight for the high ground on this catwalk. Sparker also incredibly low. Spectra is going to be able to call him out, causing him, though, to get immediately punished by Hadi. Ultraviolet has the window. Landon already activated his first, but the way that the Defiant are playing so far back here is respect from the Spitfire, as Spitfire with the TP strats are able to back away, but they lost it off backbone and Hadi as they escape right through, holding this different off angles, allowing the Defiant to profit.
And that fight went on so long that Toronto Defiant are going to get so much capture progress. And going to take a little bit of turret damage, allows himself to get healed back up there by the team. But this Bastion has been such a big difference maker. Usually on this map, you might see Hydron pick some sort of other hit scan, like a Sojourn, a Hanzo, that might be able to play a little bit farther away. But here's the Captive Sun. How much of a difference maker can this ultimate be?
We saw that mark right there, but the mortality, the timing from Landon, holding on to that as a Photon Barrier gets called here as well. Kalush seeing that as the green light to move in with the Terror Surge, the follow-ups from Sir Majed. Kalush gonna be the Titan that goes off against Hadi, the Ryan man himself. And they are gonna be able to take this team fight and keep their feet planted on this point.
What's really nice about the composition that Toronto Defiant is running is there's so much self-sustain. This Bastion is really difficult to take down, and it's making London Spitfire think twice about who they decide to actually teleport onto or try to flank behind. Hydron, very survivable right now. Spectra as well. You have so many cooldowns to keep yourself in this game, and Spectra doesn't have the chance to use them.
Immediately, too, he tried to time the Mei wall, was literally a frame late in that moment, gets called out for it as the artillery also gets called in from Sparker. Just tries to cut off the disengage here, clearing up some extra space while he gets the nade kill as well onto Ultraviolet, who had the window ready, was holding on to it for some time here. Now, as overtime ticks away, finally London Spitfire, the clear point for right now is Defiant looking to plan their way to rotate in.
And it doesn't matter that Toronto Defiant lose that fight, because that's 99%, and that's ultimates on the board. Defiant can get back into this one with the amplification matrix to push the London Spitfire back, and then they have the follow-up as well of another Captive Sun. And while that didn't end up actually getting all the frags that you would have liked, it still got out the immortality field, which is such a key piece for London Spitfire to play around with the Earth Shatter first!
Should have seen them coming! No Maywall's gonna stop that here, especially when the Shatter had already landed. In that moment, the TP into the Shatter combo special that we always see the Spitfire utilize.
Toronto Defiant stood no chance if Hadi was going to be right around the corner to be able to lay everybody on their backs. They didn't have to use the amplification matrix though, so that's still a tool that they can use. Now Toronto are also going to make a different approach. This time they're going to go underneath the point. They'll make their way back, and London Spitfire still have that teleport online to be able to make a quick comeback.
Sir Majed, though, taking to the sky to the Captive Sun. Immortality used up from Ultraviolet as he dies right through the window as Sparker finds two. The nade, the damage being done. Sparker does it again as the reset comes in for the Defiant.
Look at that. London Spitfire, they still have skin in the game. Even though Toronto Defiant were off to such a quick start, that's two heavy ultimates that London Spitfire have been able to sustain through. So now you've got Sparker's Bastion that might be able to just keep them enough at bay. Hydron's gonna pull the ultimate first though.
99% still in favor for Defiant, while the London Spitfire are looking even their way. The artillery finding Backbone. Beautiful looks here as Defiant inched their way closer to that point. See the artillery being called in from the other side from Sparker. We've seen the impact, the space that he could build in at least. Overtime ticking away though, so Spitfire can start rotating onto the point. Dropping down from the high ground, it's going to be Admiral. Kalush, take an eye though, he's got the Terror Surge. The pin comes in from Hadi. Perfect timing, coming to my loving open arms. Trying to run away. Why are you running? The overtime taken away still. London Spitfire with Backbone making the swap over to the Tracer. So desperately is able to retouch on the point, allowing Hadi to profit to finish off Kalush. Another team fight win in favor for the London Spitfire, and they're nearing 95%.
I mean, this is just a very difficult position for Toronto Defiant to come back from, because who gets a chance to actually touch the point? No one can touch. They all had to scatter around, and that was a close round on Mecha Base. What a comeback for the Spitfire to go from 0 to 100.
That shatter earlier from Hadi. Just Hadi things out here, and including the quick swap from Backbone just when he was so close to be able to help enable Hadi there after getting the pin originally onto Kalush, after getting punished from using the Terror Surge. All right. Beautiful opening here between these two historical teams now. Diving into the second round.
Toronto Defiant are going to maintain this composition that we saw on Mecha Base for now. The Mei, once again, like such a great way to be able to slow somebody down. Maybe that stops them enough from being able to get into a teleporter. And the wall as well. Think about how many times we saw a member of the London Spitfire get isolated. But this team composition that London Spitfire like to run, they don't just have one solution for these problems. So let's say, like, yeah, maybe Hadi is the one that gets isolated. You still have the ability to pull out the photon barrier, or you have the teleporter. Just so many ways to get out of dodge. And oh gosh, Ultraviolet got so low.
It's not even just getting out too, it's also trying to take a much more aggressive approach, even through the wall on the other side, to try to block out that rotation. The individual picks, though, going back and forth. 2 out for the Defiant, 2 for the Spitfire here. And Sir Majed just putting in some of that extra pressure before retaliating with the rest of his team. But Toronto do get that first point.
Same thing that we ended up seeing before, except this time around, like, there's going to be more staggers that take place. So even though you see the London Spitfire try to wrap around, Kalush just went spearfishing, I guess, and found Backbone all the way across the map. But that's the frag factor that you expect from these players on the Toronto Defiant. They're able to find these picks and continue to isolate these players just to keep elongating the map in these fights. But still, like, London Spitfire takes so much damage on the income, but Toronto Defiant, like, they still have ways to be able to back up. The big difference maker, though, about this Toronto comp is they don't have the Lucio, so it's much more difficult for them to make these rotations.
Oh, I love that pointing out. Kalush, 99 Fission, was able to also find Backbone here in that situation, but 2 out for the Defiant as Ultraviolet had gone out without being able to utilize that window. Here comes the Captive Sun, coming in from Sir Majed, taking to the skies. Just get that one mark before backing away to help support Kalush here. Spectra also has that Blizzard, playing very spread apart and very passively here to fight, but right behind them, Sparker does it again with these nades and finds Spectra before Defiant can get anything done with that Blizzard to control some extra space and to stall. Now with 70% though, they can give up this point as Spitfire able to walk right back in.
Sparker's just gonna keep that main in check. A little bit of focus fire down there and find an opportunity to use this ultimate. Looks like you're just gonna push the pedal though. I mean, there's the Mei wall as well as the Blizzard that comes out. Ah, he's toast.
Oh, coming in from the sky too. Sparker still finds Hydra, but lose out on 2. Just a matter of time before he rejoins the rest of Spitfire right back into spawn room doors. Same thing could be said about Backbone here. Kalush retakes this point alongside Sir Majed. Back and forth with these two teams.
It's so back and forth once again. Toronto Defiant, though, are in a much better position than they were on Mecha Base. You're entering into last fight territory. Kalush has the Terror Surge, and every single time he's hit this ultimate, it has been so impactful already. And even just looking at their past few series, it's just been really easy for Kalush to be able to weave these ultimates in. But Sir Majed is down without the Captive Sun. That is a big window for London Spitfire.
We looked right into Surmajud's soul right there through Landon's window. Instead, Overtime taking away. Had used up the immortality earlier on as London Spitfire have now regained control over this point, forcing the Defiant to back away. Have to watch out through the walls, the terror surge, this huge shatter, snipe all the way to the side, and even with the pin, it's okay. Backbone has got your back, Hottie. Now Defiant have to go for another reset, but this is so back and forth. We're seeing basically another iteration of what our first round was for London Spitfire.
But now the shoe's on the other foot. Like, London Spitfire, I think they have a much better answer to the Captive Sun than vice versa. Because you have that Photon Barrier that's able to just stop that Captive Sun from activating, and that's going to be the biggest difference here. I mean, Surmajud's going to hit it, but already you're seeing London Spitfire completely cut away.
Oh wow, the timing on that Photon Barrier was beautiful from Backbone. It was like communication really shining through with the rest of the Spitfire backing away, negating whatever use that Captive Sun could have given the Toronto Defiant. Spectre now backing away over to the other side. He's about to get Blizzard for this next fight.
Blizzard could be huge here, but it's going to be Sparker that opens things up, and that's going to split up the Defiant.
Wow. Knowing and calling out exactly where Surmajud was going to rotate right after putting themselves in the open line of sight of the rest of the London Spitfire. They lose out on Backbone and Sparker here. Hottie gets saved by the immortality as Backbone makes the swap once again right over to the Tracer at the very end with Overtime taking away in favor for the Defiant. Are the Spitfire going to do this again with the comeback factor just writing itself down on this Overwatch League script? Kaluj gets taken out and the Spitfire get to retake this point.
One more fight, though. Toronto Defiant do have a chance to get back into this one and bring us to downtown. But it's going to be off the back of some quick swaps as Spectre has to go over to the Tracer, Kaluj over to the Doomfist to make this an even 5v5. Ultraviolet does have the make sure to be able to lay that down, just to be able to push him away. But look at that, healing pile is down to Hottie's just going in.
Hottie come out of left field. Oh, looking like a quarterback out here. Kaluj falls incredibly low, though. Defiant only have 2 left on the point. London Spitfire Backbone Tracer's at it again. We missed you, Backbone Tracer. He made this up at the very end to get right back to the point when it was so close. Overtime, 99-99 Necra. And I wouldn't have opened up the series any other way. London Spitfire put themselves on the board.
They look warm. They look warm. They look focused. And they made way less mistakes than what we saw in our previous series. London Spitfire had some things that they needed to clean up, whether it came down to just playing together as a unit or being able to actually follow up on that damage. But this time around, it looked pretty great. And they were able to take that back control from Toronto. And now, oh, we do have a very special series on our hands, Vicky.
I'm just, the fact that the back-to-back comeback in those last 2 rounds was just chef's kiss here for the London Spitfire. They absolutely are looking warm. Looks like that burnout just does not apply to London Spitfire with already a dominating performance in our first map. Taking a look at some highlights too. Landon going on the other side of this window. He got a lot of impact too in that second round with the window, splitting up some attention for the Toronto Defiant, but then enabling Hottie to go crazy. Going from a flanking route to then try to go for a pin, and oh my gosh, that was a huge javelin pick from across the field. That was that 99 fishing really paying off for real.
So both of these compositions, you really want control of the point. I know that sounds dumb to say, but you just have a much more significant advantage with these comps when you have control of the point. You're able to play a little bit more defensively and force the team to come to you. When you have the Bastion, that is exactly what you want. You just want the team to walk into that damage when you're already set up. So we still have yet to see where we're going to go next and what's going to happen in this series, because it is very much not even close to over. We've got a lot more action to see.
Wondering what Defiant are going to pick for our next map. We're just going to have to wait and see, but also love seeing the retaliation from the London Spitfire after a gigabanger of their first series going into the second series. All right, let's find out what happens, where we're going to be going to on the other side of this break. Absolutely spitting fire out here. Taking map number 1 on Busan is the London Spitfire, putting themselves on the board ahead of Toronto Defiant, who looked slightly boomed out here after that first map, Necra.
It is only the first map, though. I don't want to get too far ahead of things because I feel like we did end up seeing London Spitfire start to falter a little bit when it came down to the second map of the series. And the way that we saw them play before, like, Hadi was still ahead of everyone. Like, Reinhardt is such a funny hammer man.
Yeah, don't let these stats fool you, by the way. Over the course of the entire game, I think he got like 20 and 7 final blows at the time. And then he gets up here to the high ground. Look at the timing. Oh, a frame too late on that Maywall, but it still wouldn't have done anything. He already used the shatter. They already got caught in it after that, and the fire strike was just the finishing blow there. And we get to see it again here, Necro.
Look, he even had one more elimination than deaths this time. Like, that... No, he's literally the best Reinhardt player in the entire league. Like, it's all jokes and fun out here. Especially when you're the London Spitfire. I mean, they look like they're just having an absolute ball of a time. Sparker and Backbone just smiling and laughing into the camera. But the going still gets tough. We're going to Midtown again. Why do they do this to them? Every team has done this to them. It's such a toss-up whether or not they're going to win or lose this map and how.
Especially after seeing what we had already seen before, where Titans really did clutch it up. It was incredibly close against London at the very end. I mean, it was the way at the very end how they were able to twist things up. I feel like Admiral, though, at the very least, we talked about him a lot in that previous series. At least Necro has been able to really iron things out going into this series, looking a lot more comfortable, at least in my opinion here.
Well, the thing about the Toronto Defiant comp that we were starting to touch on before we went into the break is that this Bastion Mei Orisa is really great when it gets a chance to set up. When it's playing from a defensive position, that's Mei's playground. So if they have control of the control point, they're in a much better spot, and when they're able to play on an actual constructed defense, this should also be much more in their favor. But the biggest problem with this Mei composition is that it's passive. If you lose that control and you have to try to retake as the Mei, it can be slow going, where London Spitfire can just play a little bit more aggressive than you can. If you force out the cooldowns or even force or I guess catch Spectra off guard with the Mei, like, you don't have the wall or the ice block to really help you stay in these fights. Sometimes the Symmetra can do that, so Toronto have to play this very picture perfect. And ice block was already used there. Did you see that?
Yeah, right there in that moment. And it's always been kind of like a trigger reaction to the way that London Spitfire are trying to rotate out and around. Looking at the way that they try to use a teleporter, there it is again. Does isolate 2 right in front of Backbone here, sets up another teleporter just so that way they can help keep taxing them along. But it's this aggressive playstyle that we keep seeing from the Spitfire find the success wrapping around the other side of the fire truck here.
London Spitfire are already going to take 2/3 of this point. Ooh, Backbone gets taken down though, so that is a huge escape mechanism now off the board here for London. They're just going to wait it out though, because if Backbone can get back fast enough without somebody getting picked off, London might be okay.
And they're just literally going to wait for Backbone to just TP into this side room here. And what was nice, too, was calling out Backbone in the middle of setting up those turrets while Backbone was trying to kind of kite away. Okay, you currently see the window that does get called in from Landon, and so has the Immortality Fuel that it was already used up. Good amount being pumped out as Defiant are just overlooking the Spitfire on the other side of that fire truck. Ultraviolet's also got the window ready that he's just holding on to. Here he is now. Hydron's also got the artillery, ready to build in some space. The Maywall's just trying to block out the side room while Hydron's taking out onto the high ground. Defiant are playing in this very split position to try to call out these TP rotations.
Hydron is playing on such a nice flank as well, but the Surmajed ready with the Captive Sun. This is a very easy ultimate to just pull the trigger on, especially if they're not expecting it.
Ooh, Surmajed ready now with the Captive Sun. Onto the other side while Hydron calls in the artillery, knows that they're going to be able to be funneled inside this side room. Gets to restabilize almost immediately afterwards. Hadi trying to protect Sparker, while Admiral and Landon just wait for those ultimates to get online. Here comes the sound barrier, and now the photon that comes up from Backbone. Hadi taking a lot of damage. The sound barrier gonna help restabilize him. Kalush had used up the terror charge, bringing in Hadi. They find Backbone, but the number advantage from the Spitfire, while Hadi didn't even have to use that shatter. It was just all plays between Landon and Sparker there.
That was the longest fight I have ever seen. That was 2 minutes. That was 2 minutes of jockeying around the point. Such a patient game on both sides. London Spitfire did not make the mistake of peeking out, and they also did not make the mistake of trying to get away either. Like, that takes a lot of patience to try to execute, and Toronto also didn't want to overextend. Otherwise, that would have been that first point captured immediately. You see, too, like, once again, like, did you see Spectre got forced out of Ice Block?
They were just waiting.
Already?
They're baiting it out at this point, too. It's about also, like,
They're so
navigating.
good at that.
It's really cool to see how they've been able to wait out for and call out a lot of these abilities on purpose just to burn out those cooldowns and then wait to make the rotation next. Like you currently see right here, the TP is about to get online right here, so they're going to be able to rotate around, try to contest for the high ground, and they have an escape option if they need an insurance policy. The window, though, and with the May wall right behind them, Hydron gets the profit. See, the nade, the immortality field got destroyed earlier, and so did Hadi. Spitfire, though, are just trying to navigate away.
That's how this composition works, though, for the Defiant. If they're able to get set up, that Mei is so valuable. Hadi got isolated immediately, and with no ability to get away from that wall, he got chunked. And that's why the devs called out that this Bastion pick can be so strong, is that that shield gets deleted. If it's down, then there's not a whole lot stopping you from the very unstoppable DPS force that is Hydron.
Sparker having to be careful, feeling some of that pressure on the other side from Sir Majed, who also has that captive sun. Artillery also online for Sparker as he dives right into the car whoosh. Down below, gets into the assault mode here too. Backbone loses his life. They get the trade though as Hydron gets punished. They have the TP right in front of them. Sparker gets isolated on the side, and Admiral with the backup boops him away. Hadi breaks right through that wall, and the captive sun from Sir Majed, while finding the rest of Spitfire funneled inside this room. Very similar looks. Terror Search wasn't online here though for Collusion. It was so close, and it allows Spitfire to profit. The sound barrier on top to navigate right through that blizzard sent out from Spectra, and a turnaround from the London Spitfire in another intense and elongated fight allows them to get right through that car wash.
Fantastic sound barrier. You can already see how much more comfortable Admiral feels in this matchup, knowing that there isn't a Lucio on the other side. And also just, it's not Faith. Like, Faith's Lucio was so strong to be able to disrupt a lot of those sound barrier coverages, but Toronto Defiant had to walk right back into Sparker's ultimate. So what another great way for London Spitfire to be able to finish off this fight and secure the second checkpoint.
Oh man, and that was a painful terror search to see, trying to contest the back line with Hadi being right there. Sparker profits as the Defiant lose out on another team fight. London Spitfire nearing 2 minutes, less than 45 seconds here, and they're already covering so much space up ahead.
Toronto are playing a little bit more forward. They do have some nice sight lines for Ultraviolet Sir Majed to be able to get that healing down, whether it's with a pylon or just the raw healing output of the Batiste. But here are the ults. Like, Sir Majed's gonna get another Captive Sun online, but Hadi's gonna have that Earth Shatter first.
You see the Defiant get a lot more aggressive as it's a Spitfire that are just holding forward here. Throws out that Javelin, doesn't find its mark. London Spitfire wrapping around that next corner. Passively now, we just mentioned that. The Toronto Defiant are just waiting to see how they're going to try to approach to this next choice. And they're about to get the sound barrier here too, Necro.
The sound barrier, like, again! Admiral just used that!
Has
That's
been on another
impressive.
level. He's been able to get it really quick, and his survivability is absolutely beautiful thus far in that first map and now in this one too. That TP that they were waiting for, allowing Sparker to just be on this high ground. Also has that artillery, his Ultraviolet gets taken out right before he was about to get that window. Even with the Captain Sun, all for naught, because there's not going to be a follow-up. It's just shooting ducks from the sky at this point for Sparker.
Get set up there with the Amp Matrix. There's not a whole lot that you can do about that. There's no shield on the other side, and if the Collusion's down, there's also no way to soak up that damage. So you have to come out of spawn with these ults. At least there's a May Blizzard, but can you even get to approach the cart? It doesn't really matter. At this point, you're just trying to get the ultimates out of Toronto, and you still have a minute to work with.
He's just not had a fun time so far. Especially when it comes to trying to buy space for the rest of Defiant. At least with this artillery from Hydron, the Maywall too. Spitfire are okay, just disengage for right now. They got a minute, less than a minute now basically on the clock here before they re-engage.
All right, one more minute, one more team fight realistically. Just based on how long people have been kind of waiting patiently.
Ooh, the sound barrier
That was just a second too late.
Yes, not helping out Hadi, but Sparker Still finds Hydra on the Photon Barrier, just maybe enough for the London Spitfire to solidify the push on this payload, take it to the finish line. Kalush gets taken out right afterwards. Sparker is having the time of his life, while Admiral is getting enabled to play the way that he wants, as aggressive as he wants. Hydron cannot even touch the point here. He does get that pick at the very end, but that's just all for flex as Toronto Defiant. Man, they didn't stop them once.
That was a very decisive third point. Don't usually see that, especially on these hybrid maps, that third point can just kind of be, just can be difficult to capture sometimes. It's a very predictable way of entering the point, and if you have a strong defensive composition like Toronto, then it must be difficult to bypass that. But we say all that, and then there's also Backbone Symmetra, so I'm going to throw all of that out the window. I just wonder if this is the right composition for Toronto.
Yeah. I think the
I don't know
Alari
how
is
much
having a
this
rough
may
time.
work. Yeah, like the Alari too, like I'm so glad that you called that out, because it feels like you need a defensive support ultimate against this team. Or you need to find the frags, but with the way that Sir Majed also plays the Alari, like one of the reasons why he's so good is because of how aggressive he is and how many picks he's able to get, but that means that you're vulnerable.
Have to see how this works out for this fight. If they really do stick to their guns with this, I do feel like if they opted to go for Lucio instead, it would allow them to get into better spots and to maybe even help enable Spectre even more with the wall timing and placement. Spectre's always just a slight pixel away sometimes and knows what's coming, but just the positioning be a little hard here as London Spitfire now sitting on the defense. Obviously not going to change anything for right now. Still sticking to the TP strats as Defiant are going to be able to exit out of the choke.
Look at the car wash that's been set up too. So many turrets the Toronto Defiant are going to have to walk through, as Hottie's just taking so much damage to help Landon get this Imp Matrix up and running. But yeah, how do you get past this? Like, you don't have a Lucio to speed boost. London Spitfire can just back up with the Lucio of their own or a teleporter. Ultraviolet's isolated.
And they split up. They just split up the entirety of Defiant. They cut them in half, like a mismatched pizza slice. And Ultraviolet going out. It's gonna be huge. Just leaving Sir Majed up for the healing instead. Sparker does find Hydron here, but it's gonna have to be a reset already off the rip for Defiant.
This is. I'm gonna wait, but this is looking a little rough here. Toronto just aren't running a composition that's fast enough to deal with the sneaky plays that London are gonna throw at them. Even look at the teleporter usage that London's gonna use, even if it's just for a few meters. Like, you just catch Kalush off like that.
And Kalush feels the pressure too. Kalush has been able to kite away every single time the onslaught of damage comes out from London Spitfire, but then they just reposition on the TP. They look through the window, free pick onto Kalush, which means more wasted time away from the Defiant. They have two support ults, make it three with Hydron about to get the artillery online, which very lackluster, could only buy you space for so long here before the rest of London Spitfire just reposition with another TP.
All right, then it's about getting these cooldowns out. Photon Barrier is going to be the first thing used. At the very least, you're getting that out of their kit, where now you get a chance to throw out these more offensive ultimates.
See how Sir Majed also uses the Captive Sun over by the skies. He takes the skies, and the Shatter comes in from Hottie. Yes, the main wall comes up. Admiral with the Sound Barrier. There can't be a follow-up. Good timing from Spectre in that moment. And Sir Majed adding in some pressure, getting the mark down. Gets the pin, but Kalush in the back with the Terror Surge comes alive. No more Mortality Field, and no Hottie, who actually went for the pin, ends up getting the wipe. And they desperately needed this. Look at the limited time bank that they had thus far. A minute less than 20 seconds to get this payload moving.
They finally got it done. Toronto Defiant just needed 5 ultimates to do that, which is concerning. That's also kind of concerning. If you need 5 ults to get through this composition, that's going to take a while to accumulate. And London still have things to rotate through. They only threw 3 at that last fight, and it was really just kind of responsive ultimates to what Toronto had.
Oh, and now getting that
okay,
pick
a pick is good.
Sparker. Yeah, this is a good spot. Toronto Defiant to keep on this momentum already, getting out of that choke. But the way that Hadi's playing, tried to get isolated by the May wall. The Immortality field can only do so much moving out of it. Defiant win another team fight against the Spitfire. This is also a good position to win this fight because you could try to contest for the high ground and try to deny that space.
What's dangerous about this, though, for Toronto is London are running that type of composition that can just take these fights so aggressively. Like, they're already up to the high ground. You know that they're going to get 2 team fights here because of how fast they can close the distance. And really all they need to do is stall. Toronto don't have a whole lot of time to work with comparatively. So, see what they can do to get this high ground control.
Artillery coming in here too. Gets javelined right after that onto Sparker, who can't use his own. Right through the window. Landon just forcing Hydron to back away. Now with the photon barrier too, they gotta touch the point. All right, Hadi goes in for the pin, and then the teleporter to then reposition right afterwards, just so that way they can stall on the cart further. Artillery was used up now, as well as that photon barrier earlier to buy in that space. Finally gets something out from the Captive Sun, landing onto Admiral, was rather low already beforehand. Backbone gets taken out. Defiant have the number advantage in their favor before Admiral comes right back in. With Hadi going out, it's gonna have to be a reset here for the London Spitfire.
Okay, Toronto make a ton of time. That was really nice positioning versus the behind the back tactics that London Spitfire wanted to go with. I don't think that was quite the payoff that London was looking for. Now Toronto have this unique opportunity to push forward, and this Terra Surge is online once again. This has been such a big difference maker for Toronto, especially as kind of a finishing blow to what London are running. If they can get this Hadi shield down, this Terra Surge is so free.
Oh, but around the May wall they go, and isolating them. Hydron with the option coverage and the follow-up after using the Blizzard. Only using the Blizzard here, as Kaluj is still going to be able to hold on to that Terror Surge, but it's another team fight win in favor for Defiant.
This is the Toronto Defiant we wanted to see. Yes, they struggled on that first point, and they needed to throw everything in the kitchen sink at that first point. But this is what we want. We want these frags. We want these early picks. This is what we know Toronto Defiant is capable of. Let's extend this map. Toronto Defiant still have 2.5 minutes to work with, and of course that Terror Surge, as you mentioned.
Oh, but Admiral does have that sound barrier ready too, and through that window, Backbone also is able to find Spectra. Ultraviolet also has the window that he's holding on to, and finally utilizes it after throwing down the Immortality, but the shatter right through the window. Here comes Hadi, who gets burned, deleted, but still finds 2. Kaluj gets the revenge with the Javelin, but it's only Kaluj that was left there before Spitfire able to wrap around to the fight and stop this push.
2 more minutes for Toronto. They still have that Terror Surge to use, as well as 2 more ultimates to boot. So there is tons of time for them and tons of tools to work with. If they can keep up the pressure, this is exactly what they need. Like, don't let up the gas. Like, don't give London Spitfire a chance to breathe. These fights have to be aggressive.
Surmajet has also been able to get a good amount of impact, at least in this section for now. You heard us earlier, the artillery was called in. Spectra now finds Admiral. Huge first pick here too. Also delays and stalls out the sound barrier for our next fight. Defiant have the number advantage. They're going to be able to find Hadi next, and it's going to have to be another reset coming in from the Spitfire, but this time, Toronto Defiant have less than a minute. They clear out the point, and the line is in sight right in front of them. The golden box of Victor. Can Hadi get there in time with less than a minute? Looks like Backbone was able to make the swap over to the Tracer, but they immediately take him out, and Hadi can't contest.
London Spitfire just got backboned. The wall to keep Hadi and Spawn. Brilliant. Brilliant. Dish out their medicine right back at him. Not too different of time banks heading into round number 3.
That is important to note too, considering the fact that Toronto Defiant were very dominating, especially through that second point, and winning a lot of these team fights before London Spitfire was able to at least halt the momentum temporarily by that third point. I do believe the Iliadi had gotten a much more impact in that by that third point from Surmajet, where Surmajet looked like he was struggling in those first 2 points. Doesn't look like Defiant could have that opener that they need to not only use the sound barrier to contest, but also being able to hold forward, get put into position here with the speed boost. But They are sticking to their guns here. We're going to have to see how Defiant are going to be able to hold this defense, as London Spitfire, like you mentioned, Necro, have very similar time banks with Defiant.
The biggest difference with the time bank, though, is that extra 26 seconds could be enough for Toronto Defiant to actually start cycling ultimates. Really depends on how far London Spitfire are able to get with their attack push, so we'll have to wait and see just how far they can push the envelope. But usually you're looking at like a minute to get up an amp matrix and then see what comes on after that, but that's really all that London have to work with, so maybe 2 team fights here. Symmetric teleporters, again, big difference maker. They can just bypass all this damage or meet Toronto where it hurts.
Ooh, getting down to the
That
wire.
hurts.
Yeah, with Sparker finding Hydron right afterwards. That was a follow-up from the nade too, by the way. Just dealing lethal amount of damage on the other side, just ricocheting off that side wall. The TP coming in from Backbone, rotating onto this point. Again, it's the same game plan from the London Spitfire, but it's about rushing to that point with less than 30 seconds on the clock.
Already get 2 ticks of progress. You will see Hydron walk back into this one, but Kalusha's already getting really low. The Immortality Field has to be used here. They just don't touch. They don't touch.
Oh,
They don't touch.
Even around the Maywall too, it's just Backbone had put them in the microwave with the beamage. Sparker gets a follow-up, clears out the rest of Defiant. It's another reset for them, but we have the payload moving for the Spitfire.
They're gonna get so much progress here too. Like Hydron and Surmajed are just coming online, so you know that this cart's already around the corner. Hottie can just take this forward position, and there's not a whole lot that Toronto can do right now because they're all walking back. There's no mobility available. They just have to win this all-out brawl, but it's gonna be London getting the Amp Matrix up first.
They have to stay on this car right here, going through the car wash too. Defiant not having much to work with. Meanwhile, Spitfire still have the window. Landon uses it up right here. Is Defiant going to drop down right now, or just going to wait out on the window, work around the back end of the payload? Spectre's about to get the Blizzard, which is going to be detrimental, hand in hand with Iliadi's ultimate that we can see from Surmajed, the Captain's son. Artillery getting called in from Sparker, the sound barrier from Admiral to keep everybody from Spitfire alive, finding Hydron as the first pick. Can the Spitfire continue to do this here with Hottie going down Admiral to meet him right afterwards? After using out on that sound barrier was just too much damage on the Defiance. Spectre just taking a moment to breathe on the other side of the cart. Ring around the Rosie.
Oh, the photon barrier is so nice to be able to stall for some time to allow some of the reinforcements for London Spitfire to get back, and that's going to be a teleporter to start making things a little bit messy, but Kalush, can he deal a finishing blow here?
Oh, but with the Terror Search has also allowed Hottie to come right back in with the stall on overtime with the Shatter. Sparker still going down right before Hottie comes in hand with Admiral. Backbone makes a swap over to the Desperate Tracer to get right back into the fight. Another Maywall, but Toronto Defiant won't die, and London Spitfire are not out yet while they keep trickling in.
Oh, that overtime is going to expire so fast as anybody steps off the cart. But it finally looks like Toronto Defiant are going to be able to overwhelm and stop the cart in its tracks. But London, with 1 minute, made the absolute most of it, Vicky.
It's a matter of time before they were outnumbered in that final fight against Toronto Defiant, with Spitfire just trickling in one by one with those swaps to stay as long as they can on that fight. But they really did try to push it the distance right through that car wash.
That's a lot of distance. It's a lot of distance in Toronto. Yeah, they have that extra 26 seconds, but with how much distance London Spitfire took, Toronto still have to play this flawlessly. If they get stopped at all, if they lose a single team fight, London start to take that ultimate advantage and may just be able to win the map.
Hydron has been called out so much, especially in that last round with Spitfire.
Those
being on
flanks
the
are
back.
risky.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing Bastion too, you know? He's got a big head. So, gotta have to be careful, especially wrapping around corners like that. He's died like 14 times thus far, versus what we've seen from Sparker, who's died 7 times.
It's so tough. Like, you see this strategy used a lot, where if you put the Bastion on its own, it's either a great boon or it's a great bane. It's such an easy target to isolate. Especially if Hottie's shield is alive, then you don't really care too much about going head on into another Bastion. It's about playing together as a unit. Toronto now got a chance to start their attack push. You can already see that time bank starting to dwindle. They've taken a lot of time to engage in these fights, which is why I worry that 126 is just not gonna quite be enough. They've got to get an opening pick here, but Kalush is so low. That is such an incredible amount of healing going into him.
But with Ultraviolet being the first one to go out, the Maywall coming in clutch for Spectre, but just temporarily being at the number disadvantage. They did find Backbone. The trade as Sparker just comes in and sweeps up the rest of what is left of the Toronto Defiant. That's a little stall here too before backing away in time, but it's about wasting all the time away from the Defiant with less than 30 seconds on the clock.
And Landon's gonna be the first one with an ult. This is where things start to get really tricky. Like Toronto, they're starting to run out of time. How do they architecturally play around this amplification matrix? They can't just speed past it. They have to go head on into this damage, and that's gonna get Sparker an ult. Backbone's really close as well.
Oh, win the
Do or die.
This is the moment right here for both these teams. They find Hottie. He goes down without being able to utilize the Shatter. No protection, no space. The London Spitfire are no longer present here as the Toronto Defiant shows signs of life to get this payload out of the garage.
Overtime is already activated. Toronto still have to play this perfectly, but now they're starting to get the tools to do that. Fantastic awareness to be able to single out Hottie once again, and the rest of the Defiant are just going to start to move up. They know that Ultraviolet still is going to have sightline onto the team, even if they play a little bit more far forward. This is going to be another absolute just giga banger of a fight. Hottie's got the Earth Shatter. Kalusha's going to have the Terra Surge. Let's see how these two teams match up against each other.
So many ultimates online from both these sides. Overtime burning down, approaching Shiny Box right below the feet of the Toronto Defiant as the artillery gets called in from Hydron. They have to look around here on the other side. The Photon Barrier gets called in, buying space for the London Spitfire. Artillery on the other side as the Sound Barrier comes in from Admiral. The Terra Surge from Kaluzo brings everybody in from the Spitfire, allowing the combo to come into fruition. The Captive Sun allowing the Terra Surge to benefit. And the Toronto Defiant in this nail-biting finishing fight get map number 2 on Midtown.
Good stuff from Toronto. I think they're starting to finally figure out how to play against this composition. And while it always looks slow going with the Mei, Spectre has also made some great adjustments throughout this map to really make that Mei look powerful. It's always tough when one is Spitfire playing a more aggressive game. That Mei does need some time to actually ramp up. And if you're forcing out the ice block, it's a little bit more difficult for Spectre to be able to keep himself in this. But now when you have the walls a little bit more reactive, that's where the Mei becomes incredibly powerful. Hottie's been isolated a lot in this series, and this is something that Toronto Defiant can take advantage of.
It's always been so close too, though, down to the wire with both of these teams, even till the very end with Defiant showing up with the Kaluj Terra Surge, but I really specifically want to highlight the very end to help combo the Terra Surge, following up after the Captive Sun 2 hand in hand. That worked beautifully at the very end, and it happened when it mattered the most to prevent the London Spitfire from contesting while holding on to that high ground. Even at the very end, Surma Jed really showing why they're using the Eladi pick when we're wondering at the very beginning, it looked like they were struggling because of it, started ramping up further here for the Toronto Defiant.
Well, it's nice too when you are playing from ahead. The Ilaria just ended up being a great ultimate to deal the final blows to Spitfire in those moments, and you saw how the Maywall was also isolating them from even being able to touch the payload. But Spitfire, they know where to run it back. Running back over to New Junk City.
I'm excited to see how this plays out for them, especially after the fact we just saw them take care of Vancouver Titans on New Junk City, where they didn't find the same amount of success that they were expecting. Have to see if the script has turned around right back in their favor on the other side of this break. You don't want to miss it.
out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the. Wake up, get out the sheets. We came for one man, forget my peace. We take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the.
Yeah, I hear him chatting the noise. Can't stop for the talking. Hot like fire on the pine. If you wanna touch Mount Please use caution.
Reeling from their dub in map number 2, they rise together, tying our series 1-1 upkeys before jumping into our third map on Flashpoint onto New Junk City.
That is my favorite hype video. Out of every team, I think that is my favorite, alongside the New York Excelsior one and the London Spitfire one. It just gets you so hype and like so pumped up. And especially when you've got a tank player like Kaluge at the helm, how could you not be excited about this team? Kaluge has consistently impressed on every tank hero that he's come out with. Like, we talk about the flexibility of these tank players being such a huge asset, and Kaluge is no exception to this.
Yeah, being able to also have those insane Terror Surges and then the follow-up at the very end between the Terror Surge and the Captive Sun from Sir Majed. Oh my, like look at this. The space bot in, knowing exactly the only route that London Spitfire could take in that moment through that one choke, since they like to hang out inside these side rooms waiting on another TP to then navigate around this entire map, had just fallen short, especially looking at Spectra's wall placements in combination with the Terror Surge has been so terrifying to see.
It's gotten better. It's gotten better, and we could see a difference on Midtown of how both of those like cooldowns and abilities interact with each other. And I hope that that keeps up. We're going over to Flashpoint, which is where I think things are still kind of a toss-up. When we looked at Busan, the Mei struggled a little bit to really feel impactful just because of how slow sometimes that composition needs to be played. And with Flashpoint, things are like so fast-paced. You don't get a chance to breathe or think when you go into these team fights. You just have to go.
And I do want to highlight that we did just see the London Spitfire versus the Vancouver Titans, taking the Titans to New Junk City per London's pick. But I feel like looking at that series and looking at this series, it is a highlight to pinpoint. Oh, hasta la vista, all right. It is nice to pinpoint that Admiral is playing so much better within this series. It looks like he's a lot more comfortable here. So running it back, there was a few mistakes from Admiral that actually costed them that one map against the Titans, but this is a completely different story now, looking at how Admiral's doing against Defiant.
It has been a night and day difference, and this is really where the Lucio can step it up. And so maybe this is where London Spitfire can get that point series back in their favor. They are going to make it over to the arena first. Another one of the reasons why this composition is just so strong and so fast. And this time around, Hadi's playing a little bit more far forward. You can get those fire strikes into this big glob of players, and it really does help to charge that up a little bit faster. But Toronto are playing really well around that. Luge eating up so much of that damage. And it's going to be a waiting game here. Who's going to get the first pick and who decides to go first?
See with Hadi taking a good amount of that pressure right here on the other side. Look at the way that Toronto Defiant are playing too. Very split up, apart on purpose. Sir Majed taking also a different off angle alongside with Spectra, who put down that wall right alongside Hydron. The Immortality field has already been used up. The engagement starts here too. Landon uses the window, and that has cleared out the high ground for the Toronto Defiant, trying to run away from the onslaught of damage that they come in with.
Sometimes you just have to be a little bit patient. So while Toronto Defiant were able to get over to the point just a little bit faster, Spitfire are just like gonna go meet them in the middle again. I love that these teams are starting to evolve their strategies on Flashpoint. It's no longer just about playing around the point itself. It's about finding these more unique opportunities to take the fight to the other team, especially when you know that you're ahead and these Flashpoints tick up so fast.
So true too, especially with their positioning right now getting a little aggressive. Also love hearing the arena just roar up when the team fight comes through and the teams win on top. Summerjet does have that Captive Sun activated. They do use the window from Ultraviolet. The Photon Barrier from Backbone, though, blocking that window while Spectre comes in with the Blizzard. The Alari Captive Sun marking them down. Landon did put down that Immortality field, surviving for as long as possible, but Summerjet needs to be looked at because right now, London Spitfire just letting him rain from above on top of Howdy.
And look at how effective that healing pylon can be too. How do you on the Spitfire touch that without having to peek your head far forward and show your face that everybody is going to be focusing into? Toronto are able to sneak that back out from London Spitfire's noses, and you get a chance to go again. But Defiant, like, they still have this Bastion ult that can delay the progress of London. You can see that teleporter already getting used here, so that's now on cooldown again.
And going back and forth here too. He's got that shatter ready as the artillery comes in from Sparker. He's gonna see option coverage to find Sir Majed though in the back. And the healing pylon on top of it. We're gonna try to take a different cheeky angle right down below on the point. Well, Kalu's gonna be able to navigate away. It's Landon who's just having free range here right through the window, trying to find Ultraviolet, who also has a window himself. But look at the damage output. Hydron and Spectre having to be careful. The Immortality field had already been used, which was the green light for Hadi to come in with the fire strike, with the follow-up, and London Spitfire, they clear up the Defiant on this first point.
First flashpoint has been secured, and now we get a chance to look at where we are moving next and where is it going to be more advantageous. London Spitfire have a little bit of a leg up on this one as we head over to the docks, and they're going to be able to meet Toronto Defiant there first. So that means they get to get set up, like, and now Sparker gets kind of his pick of his poison of where he decides to actually set up with this Bastion, and also where these turrets go. So how did Toronto Defiant start to play around that?
Him and Backbone too, and with those TPs that they could utilize on the high ground by this catwalk. You already see those turrets set up on the left side here. Just wait to see how Defiant want to approach this. Alright, point's been unlocked already. Backbone. Backen's about to get the Photon Barrier. Something else that the Spitfire are definitely going to utilize here. Sir Majed's about to get the Captive Sun. And Kaluj with that Terra Surge. We know what they've already been able to do before. The ham and cheese sandwich combo that they need to work for here. On the other side, though, Backbone puts out the Photon Barrier, and Admiral's about to get the Sound Barrier here, too. So many ultimates online to counter each of these ultimate combos.
Another jockeying for position, though, is Majed is looking for a sneaky angle to get to use this Captive Sun.
Captive Sun activated here right now, so we're just trying to get into position. The artillery was called in from Sparker earlier, too, destroying that healing pylon. Immortality from Ultraviolet used to help out Spectra to try to restabilize him into position as Kalu's still holding on to that Terror Surge for right now. Playing off this low ground, playing off these different angles while also trying to delete Hadi's shield. They lost out an Admiral, rather Sparker, and now the rest of Spitfire are falling like a line of dominoes.
That's still a lot of capture progress that they're able to walk away with, but Toronto, just another clean house. A clean sweep as we take a look at the Ducks now. A little bit more far forward. Spectra, too, with the Blizzard. One of these points that I feel like the Blizzard would be more impactful on because of how close quarters it is. Not too many places that you can kind of hide from that, and either you can use it as a zoning tool, or you can kind of use it to be able to play a little bit more with this and Bastion ult. Force the Spitfire into a position where you can hit him where it hurts.
Active wake here too. Right through that TP, the Blizzard, the Terror Surge waiting for the release here. Right afterwards, holding it down into the Javelin to finish off what was left of the London Spitfire with an entire team whoop. Love the follow-ups that we currently just saw from the Toronto Defiant.
That is a true snow globe. That is, like, Toronto Defiant, oh, what another, like, exceptional combination of ultimates. And anything that you use there, if Kalush is able to use that Terror Surge to just clump people together, then you're able to finish them off with basically anything, whether it's the Bastion damage. The May Blizzard was also such a great way to be able to lock down the Spitfire. But we're heading over to a point that's going to be a little bit more in London's favor again, and that's going to be over a Junkyard where they're able to kind of just beat them there.
And it's a position. Ooh, a nice shatter finding 4 here. Everybody gets caught at the hands of Hadi. Adro putting him into position there with a team wipe to answer right back. That is definitely one way to make an answering statement after what we had just seen right now. Backbone with the pop-off right after shatter.
Benjamin. Oh, I gotta see this again. Like, they didn't know. Like, they just simply didn't know. And because of Ultraviolet also going down there was no immortality field to be had either. The healing pylon just wasn't going to be enough for everybody after Hadi's also just going to get a huge shatter. Landon also, like, let's talk about fraggers. How can we forget Landon, even being able to use some of these amp matrices a little bit more selfishly, has been having such a great day.
Oh, looking to his back though, having to be careful, falling low. Has that window, he can't poke again. Having to watch out for Servojet, who is literally ready, staring down the barrel. The TP, the insurance that Hadi needs to escape when the Maywall was to his back.
Toronto, like, they can come into this one and recontest, but London Spitfire are just gonna give it up a
it's
little.
On barrier?
They can take a little more.
Spectre finds himself on the other side of Sparker, while he's also got the artillery strike ready to go. The immortality field trying to save Kalush. Servojet, though, and Ultraviolet getting pinned. The backline deleted from Defiance, and Spitfire find themselves taking another point here.
All right, so Flashpoint, Match Point. We still haven't come up with a great name for that one, but London Spitfire are one Flashpoint away from being able to secure victory on New Junk City, and this is why they picked this map. I'm glad you called that out earlier today, Vicky, that it just Admiral has woken up. He has like gone into the next plane of existence, or whatever we want to call it. Enlightened, if you will. Heading over to the refinery next. Toronto are going to be able to beat them there, but I really don't know how much does London care about this. They have 3 ultimates. They also have an aggressive sound barrier if they want.
See if they can take advantage here. Double artillery being used on both sides. The immortality that had been used from Ultraviolet to help out Hydron here. Same thing could be said from Hydron onto Sparker. It's not those missiles from the sky. Spectre's also about to get the Blizzard here. Hadi just waiting into position, nearing that shatter. But Admiral's got that sound barrier. He tries to go for a pin. Right into the jab spin here too. The follow-up as the jab surge, the Terror Surge comes in and finds Landon the wall to keep them isolated, to allow them to find both Landon and Backbone.
That is kind of bad, but London Spitfire can follow up on this damage. Toronto Defiant cannot take advantage of the fact that 2 very key pieces of this composition are down. Like, you don't have the escape mechanism of the teleporter. You didn't have the immortality field either because Landon got dropped. But Toronto, like, the fact that they got cleaned up means that they can't go in like a 5v3 scenario. Healing Pylon also already taken down. You have to wait to set that up. There's just so many things that need to go right here for Toronto, especially when they are just 10% away. And Hadi has a shatter. Again,
the wall! The Spectra wall coming in! Saving the day, baby, until on the other side side, you got Sparker dealing all the damage onto Kalush, holding 2 different angles. This is what that does. They fixated on Hottie. When in the back, it was Sparker. Backbell with the photon barrier. London Spitfire clear out the Toronto Defiant on their Flashpoint map that they picked to go to New Junk City.
That's how they wanted to get it done. That's what they wanted to have happen in that Vancouver series. And there's so much more comfort coming through from London when they're able to play their own game. This is so close. When you take a look at both of these compositions, it's a game of inches. And there's so little room for error on either side when you look at all of these abilities lining up perfectly, whether as responses or having to work in tandem to be able to get the better of the other team. So anything that's off kilter there, whether like, you know, a May wall or a teleporter placement, who takes it, who's playing together, that all counts and that all matters.
Also very interesting, I know they've done it already before, but we've been seeing Defiant opt to not run a Lucio comp into Flashpoint, where we usually see the Lucio, so that way these teams can get into a better position quicker, which we did see constantly. Unless it was closer to Defiant's spawn point when a new point would get unlocked, it's usually always London Spitfire that are there first, in tandem with the TP and the Lucio on top of it all.
That is the risk that you run playing the comp that Toronto are playing. Like, if you don't have the Lucio, you just have so much less ability to micro position yourself against the London Spitfire. And even if you did have it, it would still be really tough, just because of how slippery Spitfire can play. But Defiant now get a chance to pick another map. Midtown did go their way, so maybe this next one can also be a difference maker here to bring us to a map 5.
Yeah, it's gonna be pushed here from the Defiant to see where we're gonna be going. We're gonna find out where we're gonna be moving on to on the other side of this break, while London Spitfire sit at match point. Welcome back, everyone. London Spitfire, they desperately want this. They're sitting at match points. The only thing in their way right now is potentially one more map. We are moving on to push, and this is where everything is on the line as we take a look at our head-to-head on Baptiste.
Whoa, that hero damage. We were calling this out during New Junk City, and even just like the few maps that we've seen before in this series, that Landon takes some very aggressive angles and gets away with it. Like, do you remember on Midtown as well, where he just walks up to Hydron on the Bastion and just shoots him and goes back to the team like it was like an easy thing to do?
Very aggressive, especially when he gets these windows. He allows himself to clear up so much space. Looking on both sides, though, UV, of course, being the pristine player that he is, Landon has just been able to follow up with the Spitfire comp so much better, providing the backup also to Hadi to then put him into position while still remaining as aggressive as he can be.
That's true. And like, whether it's going to be that selfish amplification matrix to help enable those off angles, or it's just also Landon's recognition of when to use the immortality field feels next to none. He has been such a standout Baptiste player all season, and it's because of the awareness that he has to identify with the rest of the team, like, okay, what's actually good here? Are we gonna be fine? Do I actually need to pull the trigger on this? And he gets it right, like 9.5 times out of 10.
That, and also just looking at London and the difference between what we saw from Sparker versus what we saw from Hydron, the amount of impact that Sparker has with these initial picks. We talked about it in their previous series. We have to talk about it again because it's replicating itself all over, where Backbone just helps set up Sparker, the TP there, and they use it as bait sometimes too, or just send out Hadi alone while Sparker's on the other side while Hadi's pulling the attention, and then Sparker's just mowing them down for free.
Yeah. It's rough out here if you're a Bastion player because you also have to take a coin toss. Where is the target focus going to be from either of these teams? Is it safe for you to actually take this off angle? We've seen this from a few of the Bastion players in the league where if you take an off angle, it's very risky. You're either very rewarded for that, where you get free rain and focus fire down onto the enemy team, or it's very easy for you to get punished. And you can see that just every few times with London, whether like it's Sparker taking the off angle or Hydron.
Okay, all right. We finalized where we're going to be moving on to. We are moving to Esperanza for our push Necro.
So this is Toronto Defiant's choice. Orisa probably plays a little bit better on this map than I feel like for Coliseo or even New Queen Street. Maybe it's a little bit of recency bias, seeing how Spitfire were able to handle things just recently in their previous series, but Esperanza also is just a map that Toronto Defiant have a ton of experience with. This is not one that London Spitfire have particularly liked because it is more of a Winston favored map, but Toronto have to pull out something special in order to keep themselves in this series. They're one map away from potentially not making the playoffs.
So crazy how close we are right here, where Defiant are literally playing for their tournament lives right now for the entire season. I like how you talked about Coliseo specifically. They had actually lost against Boston Uprising, the reason why they're even here in this lower bracket final in the first place. Whereas against the Titans, it went down to the wire, but was able to win that series on New Queen Street. Now moving on to Esperanza here for Defiant to see what they can work with. Summerjet still also sticking to the Iliadi.
It's a really good choice for him if Toronto Defiant find themselves in a position to continue to get these picks. Not only that, but you can see how much healing output this Alari can even have, whether it's the healing pylon, which still doesn't die if you die. That's kind of an important point. Or it's the Captive Sun, just being able to get those quick picks and taking advantage of the fact that London Spitfire can play grouped up. But Toronto Defiant are coming back out with the same composition that they have before, but look at how much work that healing pylon is putting in.
A different off angle that Summerjet's trying to get into a cheeky flank position, but then gets punished slightly before backing away. It's about sending a message here from Summerjet, just looking to the back, sees the turret, is able to destroy it. But right before then, they lose out on Spectra. The split from the Defiant as Summerjet try to go for a flank, now costs his own life. Losing out on 2 now sets up the London Spitfire to the driver's side. Hydron's the next to fall down for the Defiant, and London Spitfire already getting this aggression as well as his progress on the push bot.
Those predictive shots from Symmetra are just such a translatable skill for Backbone. He came into this season and even last season of the Overwatch League as the best Mei. Hands down the best Mei player in the entire league. And whether it's the icicle shots that do have that significant travel distance, or of course it's the projectile from the Symmetra, like he always knows where those players are going to be. So two quick and easy picks for Backbone to take. That's also going to net him this photon barrier very soon.
Difference maker too, Admiral once again being on the Lucio, nearing that sound barrier. Landon gonna be able to find the beam onto Sir Majed, not working out. The Iliadi is struggling that we're seeing off the very beginning, but when do you make adjustments here as Defiant have to back away once again?
This is where we saw things start to get a little bit out of hand in previous push map for London, when they got this early first point capture that's already going to unlock these forward spawns. And that was in such a quick fashion. I mean, not quite as fast, but you still have the photon barrier to work with, and the sound barrier too. Like, there's just so much online for London to cycle through right now. And Toronto Defiant are very much playing from the back foot. They've got to get themselves back into this one.
Oh, they know that Hadi's nearing that shatter, or they probably assume he's got it already. He has it now online. They had used the Mei wall earlier on. Probably is online right now as the artillery comes in, tries to force the Spitfire off the high ground, and finds Admiral still dropping off, giving some of that space. Is going to be Hadi, still holding on to that shatter. Gets isolated by the wall, sends out the shatter into the face of a fortified Orisa. Kaluj is going to be able to profit off of this, and Toronto Defiant, this is the best way for them to start shifting more of that momentum right back in their favor after getting good amount of punishes here and still holding on to a good amount of ultimates.
Great stall. Great stall coming out from London, but now Toronto Defiant finally get a chance to make some progress of their own. And with where this push spot is, they should be able to take this high ground away from London because those forward spawns are already shut off. So it's going to be a little bit longer for London to try to get back into this one. You can already see the bot starting to round that corner. The biggest issue, though, is that London Spitfire are already a team of 5. Look how far back Ultraviolet is to have to get back into this fight. You don't have sightlines right now. So there is much less healing on the board until he gets there. So already past that middle point here as London Spitfire start to take the engage again.
Oh, window for window. Immortality also used up here, but Admiral has his sound barrier, saving Landon, allowing him to find Hydron here. Taking the sky, it's going to be the Captain's Son from Sir Majed. Can he get the follow-up done, though? With the photon barrier also being right there, that's something else that Majed needs to navigate around, which will also put him in a very risky situation. Spectra is the next to go out, and the number advantage still now in London Spitfire's favor. Back and forth as they go, they win another team fight win.
They win another team fight, more distance, past that first checkpoint again, and you just get to keep going. What a stagger onto Ultraviolet. This is going to net them so much progress. There's nothing that Ultraviolet can do except to wait his demise. And Toronto now, like, they need to work hard. This is starting to become a very sizable lead that Toronto might not be able to come back from. It's all about starting to use these ultimates, finding value. Come on, Kalush. We've seen what you can do with these Terror Surges.
If he can get into the position, looking at the way that Spitfire playing slightly on the high ground, on the low ground, they got the TP. See the artillery now from Sparker on top of that. Trying to block out a disengage potentially while the rest of the team now moves forward. The window called in from Landon right through that Mei wall, though, to break it down. Sees the way the Defiant are playing very split up here, too. Hydra calling his in too. Ultraviolet's about to get his own window, forcing them off the high ground, while London Spitfire are okay to back away in time.
They can play defensively. They don't need to finish the map. But again, they're in this position where they have so much meterage that they just need to play keep away from the Toronto Defiant.
Oh,
they gotta back up from this so they can't get staggered.
With Hadi going down, though, right now, they're going to be able to just walk for free through that choke point, and Spitfire understand that, so they're just going to be able to back away and wait out on Hadi.
He's able to have that forward spawn too, so this is going to be a very fast take.
Stop the enemy. No.
See where they go from here, as Backbone is already behind the team.
Backbone getting ready here too. Sets up the TP just to help enable Hadi, who's about to get the shatter. And meanwhile, to the skies is Sparker, beaming down so much damage, catching Hydron. Hadi gets punished in the process, and the Captain's Son from Sir Majed Again, just needs to get that progress that they want to be able to get that mark, the explosive damage here. But playing split up and playing on the high ground, they gotta split their attention onto Sparker. The photon barrier on top of the fact that the Terra Surge was used up just right now by Kaluj. Defiant aren't finding these picks. Instead, they're losing out on Spectre, the artillery! Finding Surma Jed and the nade from Sparker to the nail in the coffin for Ultraviolet. London Spitfire get this spot turned around.
They're making so much value out of the ultimates that they have, and even though that was 4 ults forced out of the bank, if you're able to convert and capitalize like this, they're going to be coming online very quickly, so it doesn't matter if you just throw them when they are available. Hadi has another Earth Shatter. Spectre has been so good with these walls, though, to be able to block off conversion. But yeah, Hadi just has to back away. He's been playing more carefully this match, which is good. It definitely shouldn't be picked out.
What is happening?
Huh?
What is happening in the back? Backbone and Admiral just isolated Surma Jed. He is boomed. I'm sorry. He is absolutely boomed. He has died 5 times, has not been able to get a pick. He has not been able to get set up properly, hasn't been able to get much of the Captain Sun. The pin comes out from Hadi. He gets punished for it, but they get these trades, and with Spitfire having the lead with 2 minutes, less than 35 seconds on the clock, it's time for Toronto Defiant to come out. They got the artillery about to come online for some Space Spectre with the Blizzard, but they have to try to figure things out here with these ult rotations.
Yeah, that was still smart, though, for Toronto to try to push the bot back over to the other side. It just enables them a little bit more time to kick it back to the middle ground. This is looking really rough. Like, London don't have to push this at all. It's 2 minutes left on the clock. Toronto, they're staring down the barrel of getting sent home after the end of this map. They've got to put something together and just come through from Hydron, trying to zone out the London Spitfire to push them into a position where Spectre can get this May wall, and then we end up seeing a spot where Toronto can start to string together some teamfight wins.
Shading their way around the artillery too, still sticking to the high ground. Look at backbone, still trying to isolate Surma Jed, though, the TP to hold forward. They're playing so aggressive just to find this one pick. Can they capitalize? It looks like they're so close to being able to get away with it. They don't even need to be stuck with the rest of their team as Sparker now finding Hydron. Surma Jed just used the Captain Sun to get right back to his team, to isolate backbone, get the revenge necessary. With Surma Jed now finding the 2 that were nailing him down, he can finally make his way to the rest of the Defiant.
But what's insane about that, though, is think about how much time that whittled away on the clock. If Surma Jed is in the backline being marked down by 2 members of the Spitfire, you're not healing the team. You're just trying to survive. Even the Captive Sun was thrown at that so that they would be able to get back. And now London Spitfire are back to stop the Toronto Defiant from capturing that first checkpoint. And all of a sudden, we're walking this bot back to the midway point where Admiral has a sound barrier online.
Admiral, though, ooh, having to be careful from the Javelin into the follow from Hydron. Love the communications right there between Hydron and Kaluj. Only was able to find Admiral, like you said, with the sound barrier ready to go. That's going to be a huge pick here and allow Defiant to find continued elevation in this momentum. Trying to split up the London Spitfire with Kaluj being right around the corner. He's got the Terra Surge. Looks to use it. The final fight territory. Less than 20 seconds on the clock. And even with that Terra Surge, the photon barrier alongside it has allowed Landon and Sparker to pop off. Less than 10 seconds now on the clock before London Spitfire punch their tickets to go to Toronto.
London Spitfire are just 3 seconds away. Can anybody from Toronto Defiant touch? They cannot! London Spitfire with the absolute lower bracket run, Vicky. They are the Canada Killers, sending both the Vancouver Titans and the Toronto Defiant home. They did it!
The Ryan Sim legends themselves. Welcome to Toronto. They punched their tickets in. We'll see you in the playoffs. You lads deserve it. London Spitfire, reach up with the rest of the teams waiting for them in the playoffs, sitting alongside the Atlanta Reign, the Florida Mayhem, Houston Outlaws, Boston Uprising, as well as a Dallas Fuel that qualified earlier today alone. What a finisher right there for this team to make the micro adjustments that they needed, working into Hadi's strength of being the chatty he is himself on the Reinhardt.
I mean, that 30-minute break seemed like it worked magic for the London Spitfire. They had some small things that they needed to clean up heading into this series. Toronto Defiant are not slouches. They are so formidable, and that's why you needed to see them just huddle up, pull it together, so that they could be able to get this victory. That was a hard-fought battle once again, and London Spitfire have had an absolute marathon of games and maps today. But they got it done, and with just so much firepower behind them, we gotta talk about our player of the match, Landon, the absolute fragger of the Baptiste that he is.
We talked about Landon so many times throughout the course of this series. And I don't know if it's a curse from Sully and Jake after what we had seen between their Titan setup and now going into their final match against the Toronto Defiant. Coming out on top, Landon was able to help enable Hottie so many times, keeping Admiral alive. There were some fixes. Admiral ironed out so many mistakes that he did against the Titan series going into this final game for them. They weren't boomed. They were just ready to go here. They were all warmed up, and you can see it with the way that Landon was able to play so aggressively, even throughout his own window.
I mean, this is still a team effort, right? Like, the fact that Landon, though, is just such a key piece of the comp. I want to say backbone there, but I guess it also kind of makes sense, even though the player's also named that. But Landon, like, what a standout star. This is one of the best, if not the best, Baptistes in the league. And he's had so much practice with this composition in particular. And if he wasn't on point with the Baptiste, this comp would not be nearly as powerful as it is for the London Spitfire. But look at that! Vicky, your favorite thing, he's only died twice on Esperanza.
I love how you always have to point it out. It's so true. I mean, come on. You compare it to the deaths that we had seen from Surmajed. I know it's inevitable looking at the fact that London Spitfire won all those fights literally with that momentum, but Defiant had died 6 times. The most deaths that we had seen was, I believe, from Hydron was 7. It's okay, just ignore this. I'm just, you know, a whiteout on some of my mistakes. London Spitfire is going to Toronto, being our last team to qualify from the play-ins. What course of matches that we had today. I love me some good Overwatch, Decker. I had so much fun being able to watch this team make the comeback of a century.
Right? This is after the season that they've had as well. That first half of the season, a struggle bus. London Spitfire did not look good. They looked like they had a lot of work cut out for them to even be able to make it to a spot where they had a chance at the play-ins. And now look at them, the glow up. They're in the playoffs now, and what an exciting chapter for them. It was not farewell, as their hype song may suggest. It is just the beginning of something really, really great for them. But that's going to do it for us here for the regular season so far, and we'll see y'all in Toronto.
Don't move point, don't move point.
Don't move point. I'm looking at him.
Bad.
Okay, Doom has to touch. Yeah, kill him. Doom has to touch. Doom has to touch.
Look at left Doom,
Look Doom.
Getting them.
Doom.
Wins a kill.
Nice! Beat Toronto to go to Toronto again!
That's right.
We Spitfire! Rebuild our legacy!
Meanwhile,
Goodbye.
the team is out there.
Goodbye, Toronto.
Toronto Defiant.
Declassified.
Yeah, well, they're beamed up to join the others.
Where are they taking them to? Oh,
It's a good place. To do
Oh,
this place.
okay.
Oh my.
Yeah, but what are we doing? Are we? Yeah. Well,
Toronto, live long and prosper.
exactly. But honestly,
It
though,
was a good run back in the summer stage.
such a fantastic run.
Yeah, it was.
I think this team really exceeded all and every expectation that people may have had for them. I think they went above and beyond. But the same can be said about the London Spitfire, which
Oh boy.
man,
How did they do it?
man, how did they do it? Well,
How did they do it?
Let's find out.
Oh,
Let's chat
well,
to
I don't
winners.
mean literally, so. But you
No,
know.
we have a chance. Let's take it. Let's
I have
ask
an
him.
opportunity to find out. And of course, no other than Hadi is joining us for this one. Hadi, you and the team are in. You're in the playoffs. How do you feel right now?
I feel amazing. Thank you so much.
All right, I'll start this off. I know the last interview that we did, Backbone said that, you know, you and Toronto Defiant have been scrimming a lot together. Did you pick up anything through the scrims that sort of helped you get the win today?
I mean, to be honest, not really, because like they mostly played a different composition, like Mei Soldier, Mei Sojourn with the Larry. Like it works completely different, but we feel like we kind of cracked that composition, and I guess they thought so too, because they like never pulled it out in the match. So
You keep just winning matches with this Reinhardt composition, and at this point, I guess we shouldn't be surprised. How do you feel qualifying for playoffs now? I mean, we don't quite know what the meta will be. Are we going to see Ryan in playoffs no matter what?
Please say yes.
I mean, 100%.
Nice.
The thing is, I think Ryan is good right now, but I think it's actually better for the playoffs patch. So.
All right.
I mean, I feel like you said that before every meta. It didn't really apply, but it applied for the London Spitfire, and that's all that matters, right?
It's literally the most broken hero in the game.
And no one else plays it.
You heard it here first. We need to nerf Ryan. They've got to do it.
No.
Everybody's walking it back now.
Back to one charge, or?
It's okay.
I love it.
Well, in some hands, as in your hands, he does look quite scary. Now, of course, a lot of people have been cheering you on. We've all been rooting for you, even if not all of us have predicted your team to make it to the playoffs. Is there anything you want to say to the fans out there?
We appreciate all the fans, especially the ones that they're sticking through us, through all the ups and all the downs, and just all the true fans. Really appreciate them. Thank you guys so much.
Danny Lim is probably number one right now.
Of course,
number one. London all the way, baby. Let's go, Hot Dizzle. Yeah.
I want to know actually about these East region teams. This will be your guys' first chance to take a crack at East region teams. Show them a little bit of what you guys are all about. Have you been thinking about those teams at all? How do you think they're going to fare in the playoffs? And how do you want to play them? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's easier versus the East teams. I think the West is better, but I also think a lot of playing versus Ryan is knowing what's gonna hit you or being able to predict, and they have like pretty much no practice versus us. So it's
I think Mag has been playing some Reinhardt on Soul Inferno. How do you feel going up against Mag?
Mag, he's a really good Ryan. If he takes the mirror, it's gonna be a good matchup. I'm looking forward to it.
So are we. Well, Hadi, yeah, we're gonna let you go and celebrate. It's a well-deserved victory and a well-deserved celebration. We can't wait to see you and the team in Toronto. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Once again, a huge congratulations to the London Spitfire. What an incredible match. So let's once more take a look at some highlights of this one to talk about how the London Spitfire got it done. Obviously, Reinhardt is broken. That's number one.
Yeah, Reinhardt.
It's going to get better.
What else on the table?
Reinhardt and Symmetro Teleport. I mean, you just move around the map so flawlessly. No, but you know, what was really curious about them practicing all week is that it could go either of two ways, unsurprisingly. But either sort of like Toronto Defiant playing wide, you know, maybe Surmajet is like really able to find these picks and put pressure on London Spitfire from all these different angles and maybe find early picks before these fights really kick off. Or London Spitfire, utilizing all these movement abilities with the charge, with the Symmetro Teleporter, they're themselves able to navigate the map and really find picks themselves. I think that at some points, especially on push towards the later end of the series, you saw the Symmetro turrets placed by Backbone, almost like anticipating the flanks coming in from Surmajet. And that makes it really tough because Surmajet, he relies on those flanks, he likes taking those wide angles and finding picks that way. And so I felt like London Spitfire, they just had a pretty good read about where Toronto Defiant would be at what time, and they just didn't have an answer for this Rhino competition.
And one of the things we had talked about expecting to see out of Toronto was a ton of adaptation, different picks coming out, different looks throughout the series, and we didn't get any of that. It was pretty much exactly what you see here on your screen the whole match through. And I have to wonder, like, what if we had seen from Toronto maybe more optionality as far as the picks go, maybe that Soldier to go on wider flanks, because one of the things that we saw time and time again, like, we know this Rheincom can rush into you and be really threatening as a death ball, but one of their key strengths on the London Spitfire is that they find so many pickoffs, whether it's with the window, especially picking off that enemy bastion. it's hard to stay alive versus the Rhine Bastion. So I have to wonder for Toronto, could they have been better served by a hero that plays a little bit more solo on the flank? I guess we'll never know.
I think another thing that we have to give a huge shout out for London Spitfire, the fact that these guys played 5 maps and they came back into the match 30 minutes after, played another 4. They played 9 maps total. I think the mental fortitude, like their ability to stay focused until the very end. I think that's what really was like the key victory in my eyes for London Spitfire to beat the Toronto Defiant.
I mean, you gotta say that this is a team that relies on really good understanding of the battlefield. Where are we teleporting? What ultimates are we going to commit? What abilities are we going to use? So they're not necessarily as reliant on like alpha E pop-offs like in Washington Justice, for example, but they are so good with their decision making, and I think you saw that through both of these series that they really throughout all of these 8 maps, 9 maps, they just had good decision making all the way through and took very smart fights.
I think we also have to acknowledge what Hadi just said in the interview. He alluded to the fact that in the scrims, which they've had all week long against the Toronto Defiant, London Spitfire seem to have cracked the code. And Toronto Defiant did not run the same composition they did pretty much all the time in the scrims. So maybe London Spitfire already won this match before it ever happened because they kind of got into their heads there.
Great point.
Yeah, I feel like one of the things that we saw London do so successfully this series, and what I want to see more from them in the playoffs, is that in this comp, 4 of the ultimates, the Bastional is kind of a throwaway. It's like whatever, just use it when you feel like you might be able to force something, hope for the best. But the other 4 ultimates are all coming down as part of like a well-executed team plan. And even when they're not getting kills, they're all cycling one after the other, stalling. And so it feels like London, they're always charging more ultimates. They very rarely feel like they're out of ultimates, out of gas. And even when they are, they're going to do something with the TP. They're going to mix it up somehow. And it feels like playing against that style, especially in a match, has to be so difficult. Like Hadi said, you have to anticipate all these plays. And when there's like 20 plays the other team can make, it can be too much for another team in a match.
They're like a well-oiled machine as a group. And now I'm like super excited to see them go up against the Eastern teams because Wesley
just against Mac. I just want to see a
not even that. Even like I don't know, or like Dallas Fuel
this season.
Because why would you? Unless you maybe Ben Best and feel a little confident, but I don't know.
But like, I think it's gonna be an exciting playoffs for sure.
Who has the upper hand? If you're a betting man, Mac or because you're a resident Reinhardt. Come on.
Serious?
Is it Mac or Hadi?
I'm going Hadi all the way. Like, are you kidding?
I feel like it's Hadi's. I think even in that head-to-head one-on-one, I'd probably favor Hadi. But also, you got to think of the team comp. I mean, like this team knows the Rhine comp front to back. They know every swap. They know how to play all their heroes. They know how to get the most out of, especially heroes like Sim. I just feel like there's going to be a major team gap if there's a Rhine mirror there. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I don't think anybody should take a Rhine mirror against London.
Well, I'm also speaking like historically. Like, I don't think Mag is just going to show up to playoffs. Just like, yeah, we're relying on Reinhardt in the playoffs. So the Reinhardt duel might not even happen. I mean, depends on Soul Inferno. Maybe they'll sub in Poco.
Who knows? Go to the tower.
Unlikely, but we'll see what Soul Inferno does. But a Reinhardt duel is not guaranteed. But that's like one of the few
I mean, I
could see playing the Reinhardt.
But now the other seven teams, they gotta prepare for that Rhine rush. I bet right now they're like, everyone's like, oh man, London's in, guys, London's in. We gotta prepare for Rhine rush. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?
All the coaches are like, oh damn it, I have to prep for this
now. How annoying. Well, they have some days, to prep for it, and of course, we're also going to find out who is going to be facing off against whom very soon, as we're going to have the draft happening just in some minutes from now. But first, I want to take a look at the bracket again because ours is quite frankly pretty busted.
Yeah, it's been busted since day one, guys.
But the best caster.
Oh, really? This was the best one?
Bracket.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, they had 3 people. It's not fair.
We had 4. Okay. We had 4, Jake.
Jake,
4.
Jake, run the numbers.
Jake, you're supposed to be the smart guy here.
Withdrawn.
Jake did most of the stuff for our.
Yeah.
That's cap. I wrote it down.
Wait, this was the most accurate? How was this the most accurate?
I don't.
Boston beating the. Okay.
It's just been so.
Also, we were right.
We were right.
Oh yeah.
We won. We did win. We won. More people is better.
But
you guys are hating on me.
No, but we didn't get it right.
I think it was closer
No, but
than
I
the
think
others.
yeah,
It was closer
closer. Yeah.
Oh,
no, we're not perfect.
sorry, production. I misunderstood you. I thought that the girls squad got everyone beat in there.
They beat the rest of the casters, though.
Yeah.
Oh.
Respect.
Oh.
But then on
I mean,
top of
but
that, we're on top of
We're
them.
the best. So, hey.
Look at those other
know?
casters.
Yeah.
and
All right,
Muppets
now
in
you guys can
comparison.
the four people did the best bracket. Yeah, my logic is
So we cracked
infallible.
the
Yeah, okay.
code.
All right. Sorry, Jake. All right. Sorry.
More
Sorry.
cooks in the kitchen cook better. I guess that's the takeaway
Actual
from this one.
4
maybe.
heads are better than 3 heads.
Yeah, and definitely better
Yeah.
than 2 heads.
Yeah.
Because F those, right?
Wow.
What are you
Matt
doing?
Mitch.
Well, we did it. Either
Oh,
way,
I beat Jake! I beat Jake!
Finally! I've
no.
on the depth for like 6
London
years.
saved my life!
Saved both of John.
London saved my life! The two press!
Let's
The two press from London saved my life!
this was the tiebreaker for Johnny
Dude,
and I.
We gotta...
today.
Johnny, we gotta get London a
You
gift.
didn't know that.
London
We gotta
saved
buy
both
it.
of us.
Guys,